I'm Fatima. I'm from Richmond, BC. I'm your health and beauty social media queen.
Hi guys, I'm Chef Fred. I live in North Vancouver, BC, and I'm a health enthusiast.
Hi everyone, my name is John and I'm in Vancouver and I'm a work from home dad to two great kids and married to a wonderful wife.
Hi, my name is Cyrene. I live in Vancouver and my passion is health and beauty.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Hope you've been enjoying our series. Thank you for joining in, and I'm Fatima.
I'm Fred.
I'm John.
I'm Cyrene.
Excellent. So hope you guys have enjoyed our series that we have done so far. We've done a series on immune health. We've done a series on COVID, the work environment during COVID. We've also done the healthy home. And if you didn't get a copy, please do get your ebook so you can still, you're still a winner. And now we're doing our gardening series. So hope you have fun with these. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below in all of our series, and we'll get to them as we go through the series. So for today, we're going to be talking about how important is it to go through the prep and what is required in putting your garden together. So we've got Fred Chef, who's not just a chef, but he's also master gardener as well. So he's going to be giving us some tips and trades as to what we can do to make our garden beautiful. So what are some things that we need to look out for, Fred?
Well, first of all, it's important if someone wants to build a garden to grow their own vegetable or their own flowers, by example, it's important for that person to know that planting a garden doesn't end there. There's a lot of care that needs to be given pretty much every day to the garden. Every day you've got to be there to water it. You can't let it go dry. You have to make sure that the pest is staying away, and you have to weed it. Get rid of the weeds because they take all the nutrients and the water away from the plants that you're trying to grow.
Yeah, those damn weeds.
Darn weeds.
Oh.
Crazy. And the thing is, weeds grow more when we move the soil a lot. So if we don't move the soil, you will have very minimal weed. People, they like to move the soil because they feel like, let's move the nutrients around. And it's not a very good idea because it promotes the growth of weeds.
We haven't grown anything because we live part-time in Vancouver and part-time in Toronto. So we weren't there anywhere long enough to grow anything. So I'm writing down my notes, you guys.
I have to try what Fred said, is not move the soil, because I'm getting weeds whether I move the soil or not. So there's something going on in my house.
It's quite redundant. Like, I mean, I cleaned out the entire garden, as you guys have seen my work in progress, and now there's weeds all over again, and
it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long.
And when we had our fire, so before our fire, I was always in the garden weeding and making sure everything was okay, like all throughout the year, like all throughout the seasons. And then of course, when we had our fire, well, guess what? We were out of the house for a year. So by the time we came back, oh man, it was a nightmare. I didn't want to even touch my garden. I would do like one little area like this big, and I would be so tired. And then by the time I'd go back again, that area would have grown. So I had to actually get a professional gardener to just help me just.
That's why maintenance is key.
Yeah.
Maintenance is key. So before people decide to build a garden, they have to understand that you need to be there to care for the garden. Once that's settled, you want to decide, are you going to...
Now you tell me, Fred.
What?
Now you tell me, Fred.
Unless you're growing cactus.
Yeah.
You don't have to take care of anything.
But you also have to make the decision, are you going to want to make a raised garden, or are you just going to make a hole in the ground and make your garden from there? Because these are two different aspects. Mm-hmm. If you build it if you take out the grass and then plant your vegetable, the soil is not as of higher quality as if you build a raised bed. because then you can decide to put like real garden soil, you know. Having a raised garden allows for the pests to stay more at bay, but also it, your vegetable will kind of, the cucumber will and the zucchinis will kind of fall on the side, and they can grow that way, and it's quite a healthy way for the vegetable to grow as well.
Yeah, yeah, they're not laying on the ground, right? That's what you're talking about. Like they don't lay on the ground for pests to eat away.
If they lay on the ground, the pests, the worms, the slugs,
Bugs will eat away at them.
they will take it. So if it's raised,
Less chance.
it's less chance, you know. So when if you want to build a raised garden as well, there's a cost involved, but I think it's well invested money. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's like a few plank of wood, and you can make a square or a rectangle, and here you go.
So you guys, if I went to Home Depot and decided to get my seedlings, what kind of things do I need to grow it? What kind of tools do I need? Do I need, besides gloves?
Are you talking about? Are you talking about plants?
You should hire somebody to do your gardening and just tell them what you want.
You don't want to.
You
Your
don't
nails
damage
is really
your
good.
I'm not using my nails for digging.
Oh, something I just noticed on Cyrene is if you're ever working in the garden, make sure you take off all your jewelry because you don't want your rings to slip off and hide in the dirt. You'll never find it again.
You
right?
know,
Make sure-
you know, there was actually a story. So there was this lady, she had been gardening like back in the like 50s or whatever. So she was gardening, she had just gotten married, and she lost her wedding ring.
Ooh.
And so she was like, she lost it in the garden. She's like, oh my God, where is it? I can't find it, whatever. She didn't dare to tell her husband because, well, she would get in trouble for that. So she went and bought a replica. He never knew. She put it on, whatever. And then, so they, they had their kids and their grandkids, and they all stayed in the rancher. Like they all grew up together and everything. And about 50 years later, the kids were in like the garden, and they'd pull up this huge carrot, and they're like, what the hell is this weird shaped carrot? So it had a carrot, and then there was like two different legs sticking out of it, and like this like really tight band around it. Well, guess what? It was the ring.
Oh,
He
that's
found the ring.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey.
Wow, that's a beautiful story.
To find a ring.
I don't
I think I have it in me.
He's growing diamonds.
I know.
I love that story. It's great.
I'm
But
gonna
yeah,
find
take
that.
off your rings. You might want to
Yeah,
wear some gloves with your
You
nails.
want to take off your jewelry, definitely.
make sure. Yeah, but it depends. I guess like if you're gonna start from seeds, like if you're just buying packs of seeds, to help them have a better chance of I guess germinating or sprouting, put them into little pots, and you kind of give them a head start, because if you just put them into the ground, not everything can have its best chance of growing from the outside, because sometimes timing things, I guess Fred would know more, but timing it, like the weather and exactly when, you could sometimes be off by a week or two, and it makes all the difference of half your seeds dying or rotting versus that more of them being able to come out. So to give them a head start, like you said, when you go to Home Depot, you can probably pick up a lot of mostly anything that are already sprouted.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So from there, you can transplant those into your garden, and they're already kind of like juveniles, right? Versus being infants.
Planting from seeds. That's right.
Yeah. So that's something, and then doing them in a raised bed is even better chance, because if they're on the ground, you may have pests or rodents that will actually eat them or pull them out. And then I've just found some earlier. I lost 2 tomato plants because they pulled them right out of the ground and ate them. I can't even find them. Like I just saw 2 little holes. So now we moved. We have some that are in planters.
That's
Now, when
funny.
is a good time to plant these guys, you guys? Sorry.
So
Plant these-
a good time to buy the seeds are during the winter months, because they are the cheapest, because nobody buys them.
Mhm.
So if you want a good deal, the winter months is the best time to buy your seeds.
Yeah.
Either online or in shops. And then I start planting in my house in pots. around the beginning of March. And I take them out when the temperature at night doesn't go below 10 degrees. And at daytime, it's good when it's about 20 degrees or more, but
But does that depend on what you're growing though, Fred? Like depending on what
um,
you're-
let's say I have kale and spinach year round and Swiss chard year round in my garden. When it snows, they just go down, and then the snow melts, they come back up. So, of course, you've got the hardy vegetable that stay all the time. Even the carrots, like they stay forever until snow comes, right?
Mhm.
But I do plant pretty much everything at the same time. And because when you plant it, you want your plant to grow slowly and grow little leaves, because sometimes they just grow so fast in like few days. You kind of get excited, but these fast growers, they normally ends up not surviving. You want to control it. There's a lot of it depends what people are into, really. I love biodynamic gardening, which you follow the moon cycle, and then it helps the plant to grow better, I guess. But anyway, that's another discussion.
So now, in terms for preparing your land and preparing your tools, what are certain things that you need to do? Like, what are some tools that you need to get before you even do start gardening? And how would you prepare your land for whether it is for flower gardening or whether it is for vegetable gardening?
Well, first of all, when I start growing the seedlings at home, I have a mixture of peat moss, a little bit of sand, and garden soil. I mix everything together. The peat moss really helps to retain the water so they don't go dry too fast. So even in my garden, I always have peat moss in there, because on warm days, it doesn't take long for your garden to dry up.
Yeah.
And then you plant to go, but the peat moss helps to retain its water. So yeah, so I use kind of a lot of manure as well. I have a farm close by, so I get the manure. The older manure, the better, because then the urine is kind of out of it. Because the urine shouldn't be part of the manure. And yeah, I mix my raised gardens have garden soil, manure, sand, and peat moss all mixed throughout, and lots of nutrients, because every winter I cover it up with broken leaves, like about this much broken leaf on top, like a good layer. So it rains and it snows on it, and all the nutrients goes in the soil. And then in the springtime, when I transfer everything, the roots don't take long to spread and then grow.
Is there such a thing as organic fertilizer, you guys? Liquid fertilizer. Apparently, you're supposed to put that in because perhaps, Fred, like they don't get all the nutrients from the soil.
Well,
John?
There's a lot you can buy, fake or organic. And on my garden, I use, I have my own compost like you, John, so I use that in my garden, as well as I buy, it comes in a bottle, and it's natural fish fertilizer. You put a tiny little bit in your watering can, and then you just water the plant. Gives it good nutrients. That's pretty much all I do.
Yeah. Well, going back to to start things off, you got to have a few basic tools to help your, to make your job easier, because gardening is fun as well. So you don't want it to be a chore, right? Because it is a pretty fun thing to do. So, grabbing a few handheld tools, you can pick them up at dollar stores, or even we picked ours up through over the years, but you have like a little spade, you have a, a little thin shovel, which you can create to create your rows and stuff. Of course, if you're going to do things in the ground, you're going to need the full-size shovels, the full-size pitchforks. you know, anything to kind of loosen up the soil, because you're going to have to, you know, unless you already have space put aside for your garden, you're going to have to create that space. And most of the time you're either going to chop up grass, like you're going to cut into your yard and create like maybe a perimeter around it, like maybe with some, what do you call it, the edging, or some landscape ties, which are like the logs that you see. People create like a little, almost like a bathtub around the area. Dig up the soil, replace it with the good stuff that Fred talked about, right? Because the reason you want to, the soil is actually probably one of the most important things, because if you just do it in regular, if you throw a seed into regular dirt, it's too hard. And so roots like to grow down. And so imagine if your dirt is too dense, like it's too hard, the roots won't, it's trying to break through. And so what happens is it doesn't get deep into the nutrients, which, like, the nutrients are deep below. And so the roots will start to grow wide and shallow on the surface. And anything that happens, it doesn't have a deep hold in it. And again, most of the nutrients aren't on the top of the soil. So most of those plants won't survive, or they won't give you that, the blossom. Like they won't produce as much fruit. They won't produce as much veggies, as well as they won't bloom for flowers. That's why, you know, you just kind of, if you think about it, the big tall trees that are very high and they've lasted for years and years, the roots are very deep. But anything that is very shallow, you can just yank it right out, and they don't last very long. So preparing the soil that's the hard part. That's the backbreaking work, unless you go in there and get like a little machine. But yeah, preparing that. So, you know, some basic tools: shovel, a rake, what do you call it, like a pitchfork. I have. What do you call that thing? The tiller, Fred, that kind of chops up the dirt. It's like a little spiky wheel. It's like a little.
Oh yeah.
Motor.
Jesus Christ, that's my zombie apocalypse tool.
Yeah, it's got little spiky things, and it kind of churns the
Oh
soil.
no, I don't really use it. I'm just waiting for a zombie apocalypse. But
Well, you know,
I have one.
yeah, when you first prepare your soil, you need it, but once everything's growing, you really don't need it. So it's kind of like once the beginning of the season kind of tool, but rest of the year, a shovel for sure. What do you call it? A hardy rake to even out the soil. I use a pitchfork. I love my pitchfork to kind of poke in and just kind of loosen up the soil once in a while.
That's why you have a weed.
Yeah, and it just takes
You can't use these?
What's that?
I said, what? You can't use these?
No. Get some gloves. If you're using some electric tools, which sometimes I do, you know, goggles, right? And like maybe sometimes, Fred, like a pad. Like we didn't think about it, but if you're weeding or you're planting, you're most likely on like your hands and knees. And you need, you need a little comfortable little piece of foam pad that you put down on the ground. Then you can kneel on it, because sometimes you're in shorts or you're in your pants, and kneeling on concrete or dirt is not super comfortable for your knees. So that's a few things. I mean, you can grab all that for, you know, once you buy this stuff, you're pretty well set for life, right? You're not.
That's right. So I bought all my stuff for gardens on Craigslist, and I think I found everything from the shovel to rakes to everything for like, I think, $20.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was all on Craigslist. And I bought it when I first moved here, and I still have the same stuff.
I've actually got a lot of my tools from the dollar store. It's pretty convenient. Like I got like a nice big, it's like a metal shovel. Like the whole thing is metal. I got it for $4.
Yeah.
That's
You know
awesome.
what's good too is garage sales. Garage sales is a given, because you can find people. I don't know why you go to garage sales. People have like 5 rakes. Like, why do you need 5 rakes? And then they sell like 3.
I
You
know.
can pick them up for like $5. You know.
Yeah.
Most of the time they have everything else. You just I want that, and just
Yeah,
buy
that's
all
right.
the package. But yeah, you don't really need to spend like $50 on a shovel.
You don't need to spend too much money to start, to be honest.
So one last question before we move on to our next series. So I'm actually going to be digging out like a hole in my garden to create like a border garden. Do I need to prep the soil before I actually start planting?
Is this in the ground? It's in the ground.
It's in the ground, so I have to actually cut into my grass to create like a new, like
Yeah.
a
Like the bed, like a new bed, definitely. So Fred, do you recommend the landscaping fabric underneath before you put the new soil?
I I don't. I know a lot of people do, and they say it's gonna stop the weed from growing. And to me, it is. This is me. It's a waste of money. I just wouldn't do that. Yeah. So
So
I didn't do that on my side. However, for your border, is it attached to your house? Is it?
no, so like I mean, so you guys have seen the garden that I have in the front, right? So
Yeah.
it's gonna come on, it's gonna be an extension from that garden going from one end to the other. But it's gonna be like no more than a foot in width
Okay.
all the way down. And then it'll be mirrored on the other side. So we have like a border along the
I see. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And what's the soil like right now?
I haven't started digging at it. But it's like
Because if it's full of roots and rocks and hard soil, you probably want to dig like about a foot deep at least,
Hmm.
and get rid of it and replace it with garden soil where it's gonna grow so much easier.
and so should I just let that sit there or because I'm waiting for my tulip buds to come in from Amazon.
Yeah. Well, no, you can prepare it now because you can. So what you can do right now, because digging that trench and
Yeah.
replacing it with some good soil, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
So you can do that now, and then just have it there. You know, just have the I guess the row ready with mulch or whatever you put on top. But once your bulbs come in, then you can just kind of use your hands, dig a little hole, and put the bulbs in, and you're good to go.
Okay. Well, any other questions or anything for preparing? Sorry.
Oh, I think I'm good. I wrote down my notes. Get tools first.
Yes,
Oh, and
those are important.
and going back to the composter, so the composter, if you can have room in your place to create one, you don't have to have a huge one. Just have like a little small box one where you throw your vegetable peels and like no raw food, of course, but it's all like your vegetable and fruit peelings. That needs to be started like way earlier because it needs to decompose, right? So when you throw in like an apple core, it's going to take months for it to actually get to dirt state. So you wanted to, you know, the composter that you start this year might be most likely what you're throwing in will be used for next year.
Okay,
Right.
it's not like it's a week down the road.
No. It won't. Yeah.
If you don't,
Okay, but I better start on it right away.
All right. Well, hope you guys have had some amazing tips in how to prepare your garden. Now stay tuned for our next series or next episode in our series, gardening series, which is how to actually start planting and mapping out your gardens. So stay tuned and please put your comments in the comments below. Any questions that you have, please put them in the comments below so we can then address them as the series go on. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.
Bye.